The tablet glowed in the darkness of our bedroom at 2:47 a.m., casting blue light across Lana's empty side of the bed. She was working late again, or so she claimed. I picked up the device she'd left charging on her nightstand, telling myself I just wanted to check the time. The screen showed her messages, dozens of them, all from someone named Evan Price. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. The usual place. Wear that blue dress I bought you. My stomach dropped. I scrolled up, finding weeks of exchanges, plans for hotel meetings, intimate details about their encounters, references to when Marlow finally figures it out and after the divorce goes through. I set the tablet down carefully, my hands surprisingly steady. 23 years of marriage, and this was how I found out. Not through confrontation or confession, but through careless digital breadcrumbs left by my wife, the lawyer who should have known better. The front door opened downstairs. Lana's heels clicked across our hardwood floors, the floors I'd refinished myself last summer while she was at her father's lake house. She climbed the stairs slowly, probably hoping I'd be asleep. I wasn't. "Hey," she whispered, seeing me sitting up in bed. "You're awake. Hard to sleep when your wife is screwing her client." I held up the tablet. Evan Price, investment broker, drives a red Porsche, likes blue dresses apparently. Lana's face went through several expressions, surprise, panic, then hardening into the courtroom mask I'd seen her wear during depositions. "Marlow, you're being paranoid. Those messages are pretty explicit for attorney-client privilege." I stood up, walking to the window. Our suburban street looked peaceful in the pre-dawn darkness. Normal houses with normal families who probably weren't having this conversation. "How long?" "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is how long." She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the black cocktail dress she'd claimed was for a firm dinner. No wedding ring. I hadn't noticed that detail before, but now it seemed obvious. 6 months, she said quietly, "since your father introduced you." "Yes." Rowan Carrick, Lana's father, the real estate mogul who'd never thought I was good enough for his daughter, who'd spent our entire marriage making subtle comments about my limited prospects and blue-collar mentality. Now I understood why he'd been so eager to introduce Lana to new business contacts. "I want a divorce," Lana said, her voice gaining strength. "This marriage has been over for years, Marlow. We both know it." "Do we?" I turned from the window. "Because I've been working 60-hour weeks to pay for this house, your car, your shopping habits. I thought I was being a good husband. You're a good provider, but that's not enough anymore." The casual cruelty in her tone hit me harder than anger would have. This wasn't passion or impulse. This was calculated, planned. I was being managed, the same way she managed difficult clients. "I'll make this easy for you," she continued. "I've already spoken with my lawyer. We can do this amicably. You keep the house, I'll take my car and personal items. Clean break." I almost laughed. Almost. "Your lawyer, not our lawyer, your lawyer. It's better this way, less conflict." "Right. And Evan? He part of this amicable arrangement?" "That's separate. That's personal." "Everything's personal when you're married, Lana. Or it was supposed to be." She stood up, smoothing her dress. "I'm staying at my father's tonight. We can discuss details tomorrow." "Sure. Give Rowan my regards. I'm sure he's thrilled." After she left, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, staring at her tablet. She'd forgotten to take it, or maybe she figured the damage was already done. I scrolled through months of messages, building a timeline. The affair had started during a business dinner Rowan had arranged. Evan was one of his investment partners, recently divorced, looking for new opportunities. The messages revealed more than just adultery. They showed planning, discussions about property division, asset valuation, even speculation about what I might do when the hammer falls. They'd been preparing for this conversation for months, while I'd been oblivious. But what struck me most was the casual contempt in their exchanges. References to my pathetic devotion to Lana, Jokes about my job as a tech consultant. Plans to minimize his take in the divorce settlement. They thought I was weak, predictable, a man who'd roll over and accept whatever terms they offered. They were wrong. I opened my laptop and started a new document. If Lana wanted to play legal games, I'd give her a match worth winning. But first, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I'd done maybe 5 times in the past decade. Instead of heading to my office, I drove to the Rusty Nail, a dive bar near the courthouse where lawyers and clerks grabbed lunch between hearings. Barb, the bartender, had been serving drinks there for 20 years. She knew everyone's business before they did. "Marlow Trasker," she said, sliding a coffee across the bar. "Little early for you, isn't it?" "Little late, actually. Heard any interesting gossip lately?" Barb's eyes sharpened. In her world, that question meant money or information was about to change hands. "Depends what you're buying." "Information about my wife and her new business partner." "Evan Price." She didn't even pause. "Figured you'd find out eventually. They haven't exactly been subtle." "How not subtle?" "Lunch meetings 3 times a week. Same booth in the back. Hand-holding, whispering, the whole show. Sophie Martinez was in here last Tuesday. Said Lana's been bragging about her new relationship at the country club." Sophie. Lana's college roommate and current social coordinator. If Sophie was talking, half the town already knew. "What about Rowan?" "Playing matchmaker. Brought them together according to what I heard. Seems real pleased with himself." Barb refilled my coffee without being asked. "You planning something, Marlow?" "Planning to protect myself." "Good. That family's had this coming for years." I spent the afternoon at the library, researching Massachusetts divorce law and asset protection strategies. Lana might be the lawyer in the family, but I'd always been good at research. By evening, I had a basic understanding of what I was facing. In a contested divorce, everything was subject to division, including assets I'd brought into the marriage, the house I'd bought before we met, the savings account I'd built working overtime for 5 years. Even my consulting business could be considered marital property. But there were protections available, especially for someone who could prove financial misconduct by their spouse. I drove past Evan's condo building around 8 p.m. His red Porsche was in the parking garage, along with Lana's silver BMW. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Lana. "Need to talk tomorrow. My lawyer wants to meet." I typed back, "Your lawyer can call my lawyer." "You don't have a lawyer. I will by tomorrow." The next morning, I met with Jennifer Walsh, a divorce attorney whose office was 3 blocks from Lana's firm. Jennifer had a reputation for aggressive representation and creative legal strategies. More importantly, she'd gone to law school with Lana and knew her tactics. "She's moving fast," Jennifer said after reviewing the timeline. "Filing for divorce 6 months into an affair suggests this was planned. They want to control the narrative." "What's my position?" "Legally, you're in good shape if we can prove adultery and financial planning. Massachusetts still considers fault in property division. Emotionally, this is going to get ugly." "How ugly?" "Rowan Carrick has money and connections. He'll try to make you look unstable, irresponsible, maybe dangerous. Character assassination is his specialty." I thought about the contemptuous messages on Lana's tablet, the jokes about my pathetic devotion, the casual assumption that I'd accept whatever terms they offered. What if I had evidence of their planning, messages showing premeditation? Jennifer's expression sharpened. "What kind of evidence?" I told her about the tablet, the messages, the timeline of coordination between Lana, Evan, and Rowan. Jennifer took notes, asking specific questions about dates and content. "This changes things," she said finally. "If we can authenticate those messages, we have grounds for a fault-based divorce. That could protect your premarital assets and potentially give you a larger share of marital property." "What about Evan?" "What about him?" Can we go after him legally? For adultery? Not directly. But if he was involved in planning the financial aspects of your divorce, that could constitute interference with marital relations. It's a civil claim, but it might be worth pursuing. I left Jennifer's office feeling better than I had in days. For the first time since discovering the affair, I wasn't reacting to their moves. I was making my own. That afternoon, I implemented the first phase of my plan. I opened a new bank account and transferred half our joint savings, my legal right as a joint account holder. I changed the passwords on all our shared digital accounts. I secured my consulting business files and client information. Most importantly, I started documenting everything. Every message on Lana's tablet, every suspicious transaction in our bank records, every meeting between her and Evan that I could verify. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one, but I'd fight it on my terms, with my weapons, according to my strategy. The phone rang at 6 p.m. Rowan Carrick's voice was exactly what I expected. Smooth, condescending, artificially friendly. Marlow, I think we need to talk. About what? About making this transition as painless as possible for everyone involved. Transition. That's an interesting word for adultery and betrayal. Look, son. Don't call me son. You've made it clear what you think of me. A pause. When Rowan spoke again, the friendly mask was gone. You're going to make this difficult, aren't you? I'm going to make this fair. Fair. He laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. You have no idea what fair looks like from where I'm sitting, but you're about to learn. The line went quiet. I sat in my kitchen, looking around at the house I'd worked so hard to maintain. The appliances I'd researched and saved for, the furniture we'd chosen together during the early years when I thought we were building something permanent. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. Tonight, I had work to do. Lana's lawyer was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive suit, practiced smile, and the kind of confidence that comes from never losing to working-class opponents. His name was Richard Blackwood, and he'd built his reputation destroying men like me in divorce court. The meeting was held at Lana's firm, a power play designed to make me feel small and outmatched. I arrived with Jennifer Walsh and a briefcase full of documentation. "Gentlemen," Blackwood began, "I think we can resolve this matter quickly and amicably. My client is prepared to be generous." He slid a settlement proposal across the conference table. I read it carefully, fighting to keep my expression neutral. According to their terms, I would keep the house, but assume full responsibility for the mortgage and all maintenance costs. Lana would take her car, her personal possessions, and half of all marital assets accumulated during our marriage. She would also receive ongoing alimony payments for 5 years. What they didn't mention was my consulting business, which would effectively be crippled by the financial obligations they were proposing. "This seems reasonable," Blackwood continued. "Your client keeps his primary residence and maintains his business. My client gets a fresh start without protracted litigation." Jennifer looked at me. We'd discussed this moment. The temptation to accept a quick resolution versus the risk of extended court proceedings. "No," I said. "I'm sorry?" "No, we reject your proposal." Lana spoke for the first time since we'd arrived. "Marlow, be reasonable. This is fair. Fair would have been discussing your relationship problems before starting an affair. Fair would have been honesty about your plans with your father and your lover. This is just convenient." Blackwood's smile tightened. "Mr. Trasker, I should warn you that contested divorces can be expensive and unpredictable. My client has significant resources and family support. You might find yourself in a difficult position." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check." I opened my briefcase and removed a thick folder. "Speaking of reality checks, you might want to review these before we proceed." Jennifer had helped me organize the evidence into a comprehensive timeline. Bank records showing unusual transfers, credit card statements revealing expensive gifts I'd never seen. Most importantly, printed copies of the messages from Lana's tablet, authenticated by a digital forensics expert. Blackwood's expression changed as he read. Lana went pale. "Where did you get these?" she asked. "From your tablet, the one you left on our nightstand after your date with Evan. Those are private communications between my wife and her lover, discussing plans to defraud me in divorce proceedings. I'd say that makes them relevant." Blackwood was still reading. I watched his confidence evaporate as he realized the scope of what I documented. This wasn't just adultery, it was conspiracy to commit financial fraud. "These messages," he said carefully, "would need to be authenticated by the court." Already done. Digital forensics expert, certified by the state, chain of custody documentation, time stamps verified against cell tower records. Jennifer leaned forward. "We're prepared to file a fault-based divorce petition citing adultery, financial misconduct, and conspiracy to defraud. We're also considering civil claims against Mr. Price for interference with marital relations." The room went silent. Lana stared at the documents as if they might disappear. Blackwood was calculating, probably wondering how much this case would cost his reputation. "We'll need time to review this material," he said finally. "Of course, but while you're reviewing, you should know that we've also filed a motion to freeze all marital assets pending resolution. Can't have any more unusual transfers while we sort this out." That was a bluff. We hadn't filed anything yet. But the threat was real enough to get their attention. After they left, Jennifer and I sat in the empty conference room. "That went well," she said. "You've got them on their heels. What happens next?" "They'll try to discredit the evidence, claim you violated privacy laws or manipulated the messages. When that fails, they'll go after your character, make you look like a vindictive spouse who can't accept reality. Can they succeed? Depends on the judge, and on how well you handle pressure." I thought about Rowan's phone call, the casual threat disguised as friendly advice. They'd been planning this for months, assuming I'd be too weak or too stupid to fight back effectively. They were about to learn otherwise. That evening, I drove to Evan's condo building. Not to confront him, that would come later. Tonight, I just wanted to understand my enemy. The building was new construction, all glass and steel designed to impress. Evan's unit was on the 15th floor, corner location with city views, the kind of place that cost more per month than most people made in a year. I sat in my car, watching the parking garage entrance. At 8:30, Lana's BMW arrived. She parked next to the red Porsche and took the elevator up. My phone buzzed with a text message. "Stop following me. This is harassment." I looked up at the building, wondering which window she was watching from. Then I typed back, "Public street, public parking, public divorce proceedings." No response. I drove home and spent the evening preparing for the next phase. If they wanted to escalate, I was ready. But first, I needed to make sure they understood exactly what they were dealing with. The real war was about to begin. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. 3 weeks later, we were back in court for the preliminary hearing. Judge Patricia Halloran presided, a tough woman in her 60s who'd built her reputation on no-nonsense proceedings and contempt for legal games. Lana sat with her father and Blackwood at the plaintiff's table, looking confident and composed. She'd chosen a conservative blue suit and minimal jewelry, playing the role of wronged wife seeking reasonable resolution. I sat with Jennifer, wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase full of evidence they still hadn't seen. "Your Honor," Blackwood began, "my client seeks a straightforward dissolution of marriage with equitable distribution of assets. Mr. Trasker has been uncooperative and has made threatening communications toward my client and her family." Judge Halloran looked at me. "Mr. Trasker, how do you respond?" I stood up. "Your Honor, I've been protecting my legal interests against a coordinated attempt to defraud me of my property and business. That's a serious accusation. Yes, Your Honor, and I have serious evidence to support it. Blackwood objected. Your Honor, Mr. Trasker has been making wild claims based on illegally obtained private communications. We ask the court to exclude any evidence gathered through violation of privacy laws. Mr. Walsh? Judge Halloran looked at Jennifer. Your Honor, the evidence was obtained from a shared marital device in the marital home. No privacy violation occurred. Additionally, the communications reveal ongoing fraud against my client, which would be admissible under the crime-fraud exception even if privacy concerns existed. I'll review the evidence in chambers before ruling on admissibility. Proceed with other matters. Blackwood smiled, thinking he'd won a delay. He had no idea what was coming next. Your Honor, he continued, my client requests immediate temporary support and exclusive use of the marital residence. Mr. Trasker has frozen joint accounts and made the family home uninhabitable through his hostile behavior. Uninhabitable how? He's changed locks, installed security cameras, and made threatening statements about my client's personal safety. I'd done exactly 2 of those 3 things. The locks were changed after Lana moved out. Standard procedure recommended by my lawyer. The security cameras were installed to document any attempts to remove property without court approval. Mr. Trasker, Judge Halloran said, did you make threatening statements? No, Your Honor. I told my wife that I would protect my property and legal rights. If she interpreted that as threatening, perhaps she should examine her own intentions. Your Honor, Blackwood pressed, my client fears for her safety. Mr. Trasker has been following her, monitoring her communications, and engaging in stalking behavior. This was where they'd overplayed their hand. I looked at Jennifer, who nodded. Your Honor, Jennifer said, we'd like to present evidence that contradicts counsel's characterization of events. She opened her briefcase and removed a stack of photographs. These images show Mrs. Trasker and her romantic partner, Evan Price, at various public locations over the past month. They were taken by a licensed private investigator from public property. Judge Halloran examined the photos. Go on. The evidence shows that Mrs. Trasker has been cohabiting with Mr. Price while claiming to fear her husband. She's also been coordinating with her father, Rowan Carrick, to transfer marital assets before filing for divorce. Blackwood was on his feet. Objection! This is character assassination, not legal argument. Your Honor, Jennifer continued calmly, we have documentation showing premeditated adultery and financial planning designed to defraud my client. This directly contradicts claims of fear and supports our position that this divorce filing is part of a coordinated scheme. Judge Halloran studied the photographs and documents. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the scratch of the court reporter's machine. Mrs. Trasker, she said finally, are you currently residing with Mr. Price? Lana looked at her lawyer, who nodded reluctantly. Yes, Your Honor, but that's separate from my safety concerns about my husband. I see. And Mr. Carrick, are you financially supporting your daughter's legal proceedings? Rowan stood up from the gallery. Your Honor, I'm simply helping my daughter through a difficult time. By coordinating asset transfers before divorce filing? Blackwood jumped in. Your Honor, any financial arrangements between Mr. Carrick and his daughter are separate from these proceedings. Judge Halloran's expression suggested she disagreed. I'm denying the request for exclusive use of the marital residence. Both parties will maintain current living arrangements pending final resolution. As for temporary support, I'm ordering both parties to maintain the status quo on all marital assets. No transfers, no major purchases, no changes to existing accounts. Lana's face went white. Rowan looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Furthermore, Judge Halloran continued, I'm appointing a forensic accountant to review all financial transactions for the 6 months preceding the divorce filing. Both parties will provide complete records. That was better than I'd hoped for. A forensic accountant would find every suspicious transfer, every hidden asset, every attempt to manipulate the financial picture. After court, Lana cornered me in the hallway. "You're destroying everything," she said. "Our reputation, our friends, our family connections. Is your pride worth all this?" My pride? I looked at her carefully. "Lana, this isn't about pride. This is about justice. You and your father thought you could manipulate me, steal from me, and then discard me when it was convenient. You were wrong. I never stole anything. The forensic accountant will determine that." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Marlow, we can still work this out privately. Drop the fault claims, accept reasonable terms, and we can all move on with our lives." Reasonable terms? Like the ones where I pay you alimony while you live with your lover? That's exactly what you proposed. Support payments while you build a new life with Evan funded by my work. Rowan appeared beside us, his face hard with anger. "You're making a mistake, Trasker. You think you've won something today, but this is just the beginning. I have resources you can't imagine." "So do I," said. "Like documentation of everything you've done, every conversation, every transfer, every lie you've told in court." "You're threatening me?" "I'm promising you. Keep pushing, and I'll push back harder than you expect." Jennifer appeared at my elbow. "Marlow, we should go." As we walked away, I heard Rowan talking quietly to Blackwood. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. They weren't giving up. If anything, they were escalating. Good. I was ready for whatever came next. The forensic accountant's preliminary report arrived 2 weeks later, and it was everything I'd hoped for. Margaret Chen was a certified fraud examiner who specialized in divorce cases involving hidden assets and financial manipulation. Her findings were devastating. Over the past 8 months, Lana had systematically moved money from our joint accounts into accounts controlled by her father. She'd also opened credit lines using our joint assets as collateral, then transferred the funds to investments managed by Evan's firm. The total amount exceeded $40,000. "This is clear evidence of financial planning for divorce," Margaret explained during our meeting. "The timing corresponds exactly with the beginning of the extramarital relationship. It's textbook asset concealment." Jennifer reviewed the report with obvious satisfaction. "This gives us everything we need for the fault-based divorce, plus grounds for restitution and potentially punitive damages." "What about criminal charges?" "Possible, but probably not worth pursuing. The civil remedies will be more effective." That afternoon, I got a call from Terry Malone, my oldest friend and the owner of a local auto repair shop. Terry had been my best man at the wedding and had never liked Lana's attitude toward working people. "Heard you're having some trouble," he said. "News travels fast." Small town. Plus, Evan Price brought his Porsche in for service last week. Acted like he owned the place. Real piece of work. "What did you think of him?" "Typical rich boy. All flash, no substance. The kind of guy who's never had to work for anything." I thought about that conversation for the rest of the day. Evan was the weak link in their strategy. Lana was a lawyer, trained to handle pressure. Rowan was a businessman who'd survived decades of tough negotiations. But Evan was just a privileged investment broker who'd probably never faced real consequences for his actions. That evening, I decided to test my theory. Evan's routine was predictable. He left his office building every day at 6:30 p.m., drove to an expensive gym for an hour workout, then met Lana for dinner or drinks. His route took him through the parking garage beneath his condo building, a private, dimly lit space where conversations could happen without witnesses. I was waiting by his Porsche when he arrived. "Evan Price?" He looked up from his phone, startled. "Do I know you?" "Marlow Trasker, Lana's husband." His face went through several expressions: recognition, fear, then artificial confidence. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." "Neither do I. I just want to understand something." "Understand what?" "How you justify sleeping with another man's wife while helping her steal his money." Evan glanced around the parking garage, probably looking for security cameras or other people. We were alone. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Sure you do. The investment accounts Lana opened using our joint assets as collateral, the financial planning sessions with her father, the coordination of asset transfers before she filed for divorce. That's legal business, portfolio management, using fraudulently obtained funds." "Look," Evan said, his voice rising slightly. "Whatever problems you have with Lana are between you and her. I'm just providing professional services." "Professional services. Is that what you call it?" He started to walk past me toward the elevator. I stepped sideways, not blocking his path, but making it clear the conversation wasn't over. "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "The forensic accountant has documented every transfer, every investment, every transaction you've handled for Lana. When this goes to court, you're going to be named as a co-conspirator in financial fraud." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? You're sleeping with a married woman while managing investments made with her husband's money. Even if the individual actions were legal, the pattern shows conspiracy." Evan's confidence was cracking. "You can't prove anything." "I can prove everything. Bank records, investment documents, communications between you and Lana planning the transfers, plus testimony from everyone who's seen you together over the past 6 months. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo Terry had taken at the garage. Evan and Lana in his Porsche, clearly intimate, clearly planning something. "This is harassment," Evan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is evidence, and it's going to court whether you cooperate or not." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You thought you were taking advantage of a weak husband who'd roll over when confronted. You were wrong." I walked toward my car, leaving Evan standing by his Porsche. As I drove away, I saw him in my rearview mirror, still standing there, probably calling Lana or Rowan to report our conversation. Good. Let them know I wasn't hiding anymore. The next morning, Jennifer called with news. Blackwood wants to schedule a settlement conference. Apparently his clients are interested in resolving this matter quickly. What changed their minds? Hard to say. Maybe the forensic accountant's report. Maybe they're realizing this case isn't going to be as easy as they expected. What kind of settlement? He didn't specify, just said they want to avoid protracted litigation. I thought about my conversation with Evan, about the fear in his eyes when he realized I had evidence, about the way his confidence had crumbled when confronted with consequences. "Set up the meeting," I said, "but make it clear we're not interested in their original terms." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time for them to learn what fair actually looks like." The settlement conference was scheduled for the following week, but first, I had one more conversation to arrange. It was time to talk to Rowan Carrick directly. The settlement conference was held in a neutral location, a conference room at the courthouse reserved for mediation sessions. Judge Halloran wasn't present, but a court-appointed mediator would oversee the proceedings. I arrived with Jennifer and a briefcase containing 6 months of documentation. Lana sat with Blackwood and her father, their expressions ranging from resigned to hostile. Evan wasn't present, a strategic absence that spoke volumes about his commitment to their cause. The mediator, a retired judge named Harold Morrison, opened the session with standard warnings about confidentiality and good faith negotiations. Then he turned to Blackwood. "Counselor, your clients requested this conference. What are you proposing?" Blackwood cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my clients acknowledge that emotions have run high in this matter. They're prepared to make a generous offer to resolve all claims." He slid a document across the table. The new terms were significantly different from their original proposal. Lana would keep her car and personal possessions, but would receive no alimony. I would keep the house and my business, plus recover half of the funds she'd transferred to her father's accounts. It was better than their first offer, but still far from adequate. "Counter-proposal," Jennifer said, sliding our own document across the table. Our terms were simple. Lana would receive only her personal possessions and half of the legitimate marital assets accumulated during our marriage. All transferred funds would be returned with interest. She would pay my legal fees and the forensic accountant's costs. Most importantly, she would sign a confession of judgment admitting to financial misconduct. Rowan exploded. "This is extortion!" "This is justice," I replied calmly. "Your daughter committed fraud. You assisted her. These terms reflect the consequences of those choices." "We'll never agree to a confession of judgment," Blackwood said. "That would expose my clients to civil liability from other parties." "Other parties like Evan's clients who might wonder about his ethics?" Jennifer asked. "Or business partners who might question his judgment?" The room went silent. Lana stared at the table, probably realizing for the first time that her actions had consequences beyond our marriage. "This is vindictive," she said finally. "You're trying to destroy my career, my reputation, my future. I'm trying to recover what you stole and ensure you face appropriate consequences for your choices. I made mistakes. I admit that. But this punishment doesn't fit the crime. Doesn't it?" I opened my briefcase and removed a thick folder. "Let me read you something." I pulled out printed copies of her messages with Evan. Not the romantic content, but the financial planning discussions. Messages about minimizing his take and getting everything we can before he figures it out. These aren't mistakes, Lana. This is premeditated fraud. You spent months planning how to steal from me while pretending to be a loving wife. You never what? Loved me? I figured that out. Respected me? That was obvious. But I thought you were at least honest. I was wrong about that too. Rowan leaned forward. You're making this personal when it should be business. It was personal the moment your daughter decided to cheat and steal, rather than ask for an honest divorce. The mediator intervened. Let's take a 15-minute break. Everyone should consider their positions carefully. During the break, I stepped outside for air. The courthouse plaza was busy with afternoon foot traffic, people going about their normal lives while mine was being dissected in a conference room. Jennifer joined me on the steps. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. For months, I felt like the victim. Now I feel like I'm finally fighting back. They're going to reject our terms. I know. That's fine. I'd rather win in court than settle for half measures. Even if it costs more and takes longer? Even if. Some things are worth fighting for. When we returned to the conference room, Blackwood delivered their response. My clients reject your terms. We're prepared to proceed to trial. So are we, Jennifer replied. Judge Morrison looked disappointed but not surprised. Very well. I'll inform Judge Halloran that mediation was unsuccessful. You'll receive a trial date within 60 days. As we packed our briefcases, Lana approached me. Marlow, this doesn't have to end this way. Yes, it does. You made sure of that when you chose betrayal over honesty. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am sorry. Sorry you got caught or sorry you did it? She didn't answer. Outside the courthouse, Rowan cornered me in the parking lot. You think you've won something? But this is just the beginning. I have connections in this town you can't imagine. Connections like the judge who just saw evidence of your financial fraud, or the forensic accountant who documented your asset transfers. You're nobody, Trasker. A small-time consultant who got lucky with some evidence. When this goes to trial, we'll destroy your credibility and your reputation. Try it. But remember, I have 6 months of documentation showing exactly who you are and what you've done. The question isn't whether I can prove my case. The question is whether you can survive having it proven. I got in my car and drove home, feeling better than I had in months. The settlement conference had accomplished exactly what I'd hoped for. It had forced them to show their true position and revealed the weakness in their strategy. They were running scared, making threats instead of legal arguments. That meant they knew they were losing. The trial was 6 weeks away. I had work to do. That evening, I called Terry and asked him to meet me at the Rusty Nail. It was time to prepare for the final phase of this war. The trial began on a gray Monday morning in November. Judge Halloran's courtroom was packed with local lawyers, courthouse staff, and curious spectators who'd heard about the case through the legal community's gossip network. Lana sat at the plaintiff's table wearing a conservative black suit, her expression carefully neutral. Rowan occupied the first row of the gallery, radiating confidence despite everything that had happened. Evan was notably absent. His lawyer had advised him to avoid any appearance of involvement. I sat with Jennifer at the defense table, our evidence organized into neat binders labeled by topic and chronology. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Patricia Halloran presiding." Judge Halloran entered and surveyed the courtroom with the expression of someone who'd seen every variation of human behavior and wasn't impressed by any of it. "Be seated. We're here for the matter of Trasker versus Trasker. Counsel, are you ready to proceed?" Blackwood stood first. "Ready for plaintiff, Your Honor." "Ready for defendant," Jennifer replied. "Mr. Blackwood, you may present your opening statement." Blackwood approached the jury box. This was a jury trial at Lana's request, probably because she thought 12 ordinary citizens would be more sympathetic than a judge alone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this is a case about the breakdown of a marriage and one man's refusal to accept reality. Lana Trasker made mistakes. She admits that freely. But those mistakes don't justify the vindictive campaign of harassment and character assassination her husband has waged against her." He painted a picture of Lana as a successful professional trapped in a loveless marriage, seeking happiness with someone who appreciated her accomplishments. He portrayed me as a controlling husband who couldn't accept his wife's independence and success. "Mr. Trasker claims financial fraud," Blackwood continued, "but what he's really describing is a woman making legal financial decisions about her own assets. He claims conspiracy, but what he's really describing is family members supporting each other during a difficult time." It was a skillful presentation, designed to make the jury see Lana as the victim of my unreasonable demands. But it had one fatal flaw. It ignored the evidence. Jennifer's opening statement was shorter and more direct. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case isn't about the breakdown of a marriage. It's about fraud, deception, and the consequences of deliberate criminal conduct. Over the next few days, you'll see documentation proving that Lana Trasker and her father systematically stole marital assets while planning a divorce designed to leave Mr. Trasker with nothing." She outlined our evidence methodically. The timeline of the affair, the coordination with Rowan, the asset transfers, the investment schemes involving Evan. Most importantly, she promised to show the jury Lana's own words, proving premeditation and intent to defraud. "This isn't about revenge or vindictiveness," Jennifer concluded. "It's about holding people accountable for their choices and ensuring that crime doesn't pay." The first day of testimony focused on establishing the timeline. Jennifer called witnesses who'd seen Lana and Evan together, bank officials who could authenticate transaction records, and the digital forensics expert who'd verified the messages from Lana's tablet. Blackwood's cross-examinations were aggressive, but ineffective. He couldn't dispute the evidence, so he tried to minimize its significance or suggest alternative interpretations. The second day was Margaret Chen's testimony about the financial analysis. She walked the jury through every suspicious transaction, every hidden account, every attempt to conceal assets. Her presentation was devastating, clear, methodical, and impossible to refute. "In my professional opinion," Margaret concluded, "these transactions show deliberate intent to defraud Mr. Trasker of his marital property rights. The pattern is consistent with premeditated financial planning for divorce." Blackwood's cross-examination of Margaret was a disaster. She'd been testifying in fraud cases for 15 years and knew how to handle aggressive questioning. Every attack on her methodology only reinforced her conclusions. The third day was my testimony. Jennifer led me through the discovery of the affair, the evidence I'd gathered, and my attempts to resolve the matter reasonably. "Mr. Trasker," she asked, "why didn't you simply accept your wife's initial settlement offer?" "Because it wasn't a settlement. It was a continuation of the fraud. She wanted me to pay alimony while she lived with her lover, using money she'd stolen from our marriage. What did you hope to accomplish by fighting the divorce?" "Justice. I wanted her to face consequences for her choices and to recover what she'd stolen." Blackwood's cross-examination was predictably hostile. He tried to portray me as vindictive, controlling, and obsessed with revenge, but he made a critical mistake. He asked one question too many. "Mr. Trasker, isn't it true that you've enjoyed destroying your wife's reputation and career?" "No," I replied. "I've enjoyed proving that actions have consequences. For 23 years, I believed in our marriage and worked to support our family. When I discovered that she'd been planning to betray and rob me, I decided to fight back. If that destroyed her reputation, she did it to herself." The fourth day was Lana's testimony. Blackwood had coached her carefully, but the evidence was overwhelming. She admitted the affair, acknowledged the financial transfers, and confirmed the coordination with her father. Her only defense was that she'd believed the transfers were legal and that she'd intended to disclose them during divorce proceedings. Jennifer's cross-examination destroyed that claim. "Mrs. Trasker, you're a practicing attorney, correct?" "Yes." "You understand the legal requirements for financial disclosure in divorce proceedings?" "Yes." "Did you disclose these transfers in your initial filing?" "No, but did you disclose them in response to discovery requests?" "Not initially. In fact, you only disclosed them after your husband presented evidence of their existence, correct?" "Yes." "And these transfers occurred over 8 months while you were planning your divorce?" "Yes." "During which time you continued to live with your husband, share his bed, and accept his financial support?" Lana's composure finally cracked. "It wasn't like that." "What was it like, Mrs. Trasker?" "I was trying to protect myself financially." "By stealing from your husband?" "By planning for my future. A future that didn't include the man who'd supported you for 23 years? Our marriage was over. But you didn't tell him that, did you? You let him continue working to support a lifestyle that benefited your affair?" Lana started crying. Whether from genuine emotion or calculated sympathy was impossible to determine. The fifth day was Rowan's testimony, and it was a complete disaster for their side. Jennifer had done her research on his business practices, and his cross-examination revealed a pattern of financial manipulation that went far beyond this case. Closing arguments were scheduled for the following Monday. Over the weekend, Blackwood made one final settlement offer. Lana would return all transferred funds and pay my legal costs in exchange for dropping the fraud claims. "It's a good offer," Jennifer said. "You'd recover everything and avoid the risk of an adverse jury verdict." "What's the risk?" "Minimal based on the evidence, but juries can be unpredictable." I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. "No deal. I want a verdict." Monday morning, Jennifer delivered a closing argument that systematically destroyed every defense Lana had offered. She reminded the jury that this wasn't about the breakdown of a marriage. It was about fraud, deception, and accountability. Blackwood's closing was desperate. He asked the jury to show mercy for a woman who'd made mistakes in a difficult situation. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the question of adultery, how do you find?" "We find for the defendant." "On the question of financial fraud, how do you find?" "We find for the defendant." "On the question of damages, what amount do you award?" "We award the defendant full restitution of transferred funds, plus interest, legal costs, and punitive damages in the amount of $50,000. The courtroom erupted. Lana collapsed into her chair. Rowan stormed out without a word. I sat quietly, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: complete satisfaction. Justice had been served. As we left the courthouse, reporters surrounded us with questions about the verdict and its implications. I gave them one statement. Actions have consequences. Today, justice was served. That evening, I sat in my kitchen in my house, paid for with my money, and raised a glass of bourbon to the empty room. "Zero balance, Lana," I said aloud. "That's all you've got left." The war was over. I had won.